Hello, everybody, and welcome to Betwixt the Lines, a reading book club podcast. My name is Nicholas.
I'm Emily.
And we are continuing today with our series.
And this is Peas.
And this is Peas. This is Pepper Peas. Mm-hmm. We're continuing today with our series on The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by Clive Staples Lewis. Mm-hmm. And so last episode, we went through chapters 1 through 4. We showed Lucy going into the wardrobe, as well as
Edmund for the first time.
And Edmund gaslighting Lucy. And so we sort of leave off with that. Chapter 5. And by the way, we're going to do 6 episodes today, because it's been...
6 episodes today.
Sorry.
6 chapters in one episode.
6 chapters in one episode. It's been a little while.
Yeah.
We've moved.
As you can see, new stewed.
We're in our new stewed. We're very happy with our new excellent studio. Mm-hmm. Pepper likes it too. So we're going to be doing a mega episode today. We're going to do 6 chapters in one episode, and then we'll probably do a finale episode with 7 chapters. Mm-hmm. I think that should finish the book.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that.
No, you're right.
Okay. So we're beginning with chapter 5, where the children are concerned about Lucy. Basically, Edmund went to Narnia, and Lucy comes back saying, "Yo, you'll never believe it, you'll never believe it." Edmund's seen Narnia too, but Edmund gaslights her and says, "Oh, she's just playing silly games." Mm-hmm. And she's so upset by this and so distraught by this that the rest of them start to be a little bit worried about Lucy, because from their perspective, it seems like she's maybe going crazy. Mm-hmm. Aww. And here's our dog. She's very tired. From their perspective, it seems like she might be going crazy, and they're concerned for her. Mm-hmm. So, feeling that they're sort of out of their depth, they go to Professor Diggory Kirk to ask him for his wisdom, what he thinks that they should do. And so when they speak to him, to their shock, he actually believes Lucy's story. Mm-hmm. Despite none of them believing, he's actually convinced of their story. And if you know the background information, he believes it because he's seen it himself. Mm-hmm. Or at least that's part of why he believes.
Yeah.
But also, he has a belief because he is using logic. He says... Let me see. He says, "Logic," said the professor to himself, half to himself. "Why don't they teach logic at these schools? There are only 3 possibilities. Either your sister is telling lies, or she is mad, or she is telling the truth. You know that she doesn't tell lies, and it is obvious she is not mad. For the moment, then, and unless any further evidence turns up, we must assume that she is telling the truth." Mm-hmm. And this is sort of similar to another argument that C.S. Lewis makes. It's a little bit more narrativized. Would you like to...
Yeah, like
that?
In Mere Christianity, he does like referring to Jesus, the Lord Liar Lunatic dilemma, not really, but regarding how like if Jesus was a person, he either is who he says he is, he's either a liar or he's just like crazy, right? And a lot of people hold that like, oh, he's just a good guy, he's just someone we could learn lessons from, he's just a prophet, but that kind of falls flat, because then he would either be lying or crazy because he says he's God, right? So it's like kind of a little parallel that a child could grasp to depict like, let's follow through this line of logic, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. That she's typically trustworthy.
Right.
They ask... he asks not only is Lucy typically trustworthy, but is Edmund typically untrustworthy? And the answer to both of those questions is yes.
Yeah.
Lucy doesn't tell lies, and Edmund tells lies. Mm-hmm. So...
Telling lies, telling lies. Johnny,
yes,
Johnny, yes, Papa reference. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, essentially, you're able to deduce from that if she's not lying and she doesn't seem like she's crazy, then she's probably telling the truth, as far-fetched as it may seem. Now, Professor Diggory has the added element that he's actually been to Narnia before, so it's not so unbelievable to him. But this is also sort of, I think, reminiscent of like somebody who is like faithful, like
Right.
like in a believer, sort of evangelizing to someone who doesn't yet believe. That like you can't convey your own personal experience because that's like a subjective thing that
Someone else has to
personally
experience
had.
it for themselves. Like,
But you can use logical argument to sort of explain and help bridge that gap. So to me, it almost seems like it's like, you know, somebody who's had like a spiritual experience, a religious experience, trying to explain to someone, you know, they have the faith from both logic and experience, but because the person they're talking to doesn't have that experience, they're just using logic.
right.
But the children will soon have experience of their own, so we'll get into that.
Yeah.
So continuing from that sequence where the professor sort of gives these arguments, the children sort of leave feeling a little bewildered that they were sort of expecting him to be like, oh, well, she needs help or something to that effect. But instead, they're left even more puzzled because the professor seems to be believing Lucy's story. So they kind of just go on about their business, and they're standing in a hallway together. They live in this old historic house that Professor Diggory Kirk takes care of. And part of that is being a historic house is that the housekeeper will take tourists around, people who want to come see the house. She'll take them on little tours of this. I don't know. It doesn't really specify what kind of historic house it is. She's resting her head. But it's said that the children don't really like being around for these tours. They sort of go and hide. And so one day, a tour is happening. The children are standing together in a hallway, and they hear the housekeeper coming down the hall with a tour. So, fearful of being in this sort of awkward situation, they try to avoid the party, but they're like running around the house, and everywhere they run to, they still continue hearing the party of people close behind. And so they get chased, and eventually they are chased into the wardrobe room, and they close the door. The spare room, yes. And as they're waiting in the room, they hear the people fumbling at the door. And so out of options, they all step into the wardrobe. And that's the end of chapter 5.
Yeah.
In chapter 6, they're all in the wardrobe. Again, we're sort of treated to those little characterizations of all of them, how Peter doesn't like close the door all the way. So Lucy doesn't close the door all the way because she knows that it's not a good idea to lock yourself in a wardrobe. But Edmund, when he goes, yes.
Sorry, continue.
Edmund, when he goes into the wardrobe, locks the door on him, and it's kind of like a little characterization showing that he's not very wise. But now, a few chapters later, we see Peter, I believe it's Peter, again, not shutting the door all the way because he has the reason to know that that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
So yes, once they're in the wardrobe, they notice that they're no longer in the wardrobe, but they've entered Narnia together. And they set out to explore this Newfoundland.
Okay. Nope.
They set out to explore Newfoundland. As they're going, Edmund basically says something that gives away that he's been here before. He says something like, oh, shouldn't we be going this way? And Peter's like, hold on a minute, have you been here before?
Yeah.
And they all get really, really upset at him, naturally so.
Of course.
Because it's a really horrible, cruel thing that he did to his sister, to gaslight her like that and make her seem crazy. So yes, there's a note on the floor saying that Tumnus has been turned in for treason, and Lucy understands that this is because Mr. Tumnus let her go. Lucy is basically adamant that they should go and try and rescue Mr. Tumnus, and everyone except for Edmund agrees, but since Edmund is outvoted, they continue on. But they don't know where they're going, and a robin leads them to the middle of the woods. And as they're going, everyone believes the robin is friendly, but Edmund is sort of suspicious, and he is fearful that the robin might be on the wrong side, and so he takes Peter aside and says, do we even know who this robin is and where he's taking us? And that troubles Peter. But as they discuss whether the robin can be trusted, it flies away, and Edmund says this is because the robin's untrustworthy. But then they notice a creature in the woods, and it's a talking beaver named Mr. Beaver. And Mr. Beaver says that he's a friend of Tumnus. He verifies his identity, showing the children the handkerchief. What? Please, go ahead. He shows the kids the handkerchief that Lucy gave to Tumnus, which is proof that they're friends. And Tumnus gave it to Mr. Beaver so that if he's captured, he can prove who he is. Hi, Pepper. So Mr. Beaver tells the children that he's meant to take them to see Aslan, the great lion. And the children all react sort of strangely when they hear the name of Aslan. Peter and Susan and Lucy are all delighted by this name, but Edmund is strangely horrified, and I have a quote here. It says, "And now a very curious thing happened. None of the children knew who Aslan was any more than you do, but the moment that this beaver had spoken these words, everyone felt quite different. Perhaps it has sometimes happened to you in a dream, that someone says something which you don't understand, but in the dream it feels as if it has some enormous meaning, either a terrifying one, which turns the whole dream into a nightmare, or else a lovely meaning, too lovely to put into words, which makes the dream so beautiful that you remember it all your life and are always wishing you could get into that dream again. It was like that now. At the name of Aslan, each one of the children felt something jump on its inside. Edmund felt a sensation of mysterious horror. Peter felt suddenly brave and adventurous. Susan felt as if some delicious smell or delightful strain of music had just floated by her. And Lucy got the feeling have when you wake up in the morning and realize that it is the beginning of the holidays or the beginning of summer."
Mm-hmm. He's fine.
And so, we were kind of discussing this quote as it's sort of an interesting quote because it's sort of seems to be related to the sense of awe that God strikes into people, the sort of fear of the Lord that is a humbling, and that someone like Edmund who is not in the right or is going down the wrong path is struck horrified by this name, but the other children are sort of emboldened by it, bolstered by it. And there was, I think I was discussing before, there's this idea, I think in Mere Christianity, where he's talking about when Jesus says, if you would try to save your life, you will lose it. But if you'll lose your life for my sake, you will gain it. And he sort of extends that out further, that you actually gain your life and then some. I'm butchering this. Let me just look it up. I'm so sorry. This is in Mere Christianity. He writes, "Give up yourself and you will find your real self. Lose your life and you will save it. Submit to death of your ambitions and favorite wishes every day, and death of your whole body in the end. Submit with every fiber of your being, and you will find eternal life." Submit with every fiber of your being, and you will find eternal life. Keep back nothing. Nothing that you have not given away will be really yours. Nothing in you that has not died will ever be raised from the dead. Look for yourself, and you will find in the long run only hatred, loneliness, despair, rage, ruin, and decay. But look for Christ, and you will find him, and with him everything else thrown in.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was, again, sort of mirrored in his writing of this part of them hearing the name of Aslan, that it sort of makes the children like more themselves. That Edmund is sort of a character who's looking in on himself. He's following only his selfish desires for more Turkish delight and greatness and being a great king or whatever. But the other children, they're not in search of like greatness. Like Peter's not looking to be a king. But when he hears the name of Aslan, he feels this sense of what does it say? Peter suddenly felt brave and adventurous. It's because they're not looking inward on themselves, but they're like hearing the name of Aslan. They're sort of becoming more themselves than they could ever be on their own.
Right.
At least that was my interpretation of that.
I have two other points to discuss on the quote. I think it's so good. It reminds me also of the Bible verse that's like, the gospel will be like a pleasant aroma to like people open to it, but then it will be like the scent of death to people who are on the wrong side. So I think it's also maybe mirroring that verse.
Yes.
And then also I think it's in The Great Divorce, which is C.S. Lewis's, like one of his other novels about like a bus to hell or heaven, basically, a bus to heaven, and the journey of like people who are kind of, I don't want to say purgatory, but like their fate isn't necessarily decided yet. Like they have that final decision to make before they like choose where they go. And I think it's in that book that there's the quote that's like, life, looking back, like earthly life will be a heaven to people who are going to heaven and will just be hell to people who are going to hell. So it's like, depending on your different perspectives, right? Your different relationships with God, who you are as a person, the same thing can be interpreted completely differently. And I think he likes to talk about that point.
That's a good point too. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but yeah, the idea that the people who ultimately end up in heaven in the Great Divorce, the people who ultimately end up in heaven in the Great Divorce, when they look back on their life on earth, they'll find that it was actually part of their experience in heaven, or something to that effect, that even like the negative parts of their life will be like recontextualized in this like grander narrative. But the people who end up in hell, they'll look back and they'll even see like the good parts of their life as just like almost like a cruel joke that they ended up in this place. And so there's this idea that like eternity is so great that it like extends into your current existence. Those are all very interesting points. I didn't think about that with the Great Divorce, but that's really cool. So yes, they hear about Aslan and they don't know who he is, but they're suffice it to say awestruck by his name. And so they come with Mr. Beaver to his little hut. Edmund is sort of looking around to see the hills that the witch had told him to go towards, and Edmund is starting to think about slipping away and getting some more Turkish delight and being a king and all of these silly fantasies that the witch has sort of put into his head.
Right.
But he follows the rest of them into the hut, and they meet Mrs. Beaver, and together they all make a meal of fish and potatoes, and there's sort of this like beauty of this part of them actually having like a wholesome meal together, in comparison to like Edmund's sinful eating of the
his witch delights.
his witch delights Precisely. These sort of like cursed Turkish delights that you just can't ever get enough of them. They never really satisfy you, but they're like this horrible addiction. It's sort of contrasted with this like hearty meal of fish and potatoes, and Mr. Beaver's even having a mug of beer with it. But it's all in a proper context of sharing a meal with people, and it's sort of this contrast of like, this is eating is not like a negative thing. Like, it's not
the act itself.
Yeah.
It's like a unitive thing versus
Yes.
like the Turkish delight is like an isolating thing,
Yes.
you know?
But I think it's an important distinction he draws out too, because it shows like C.S. Lewis's sort of like Christian worldview,
Right.
that it's like, it's not a Gnostic worldview of like all of these things of the body are evil.
Right.
You know, like a Gnostic worldview would be like, eating is evil and it's only we have to do it, but one day we'll escape this flesh prison. And no, like in C.S. Lewis's view, it's like, no, there's this hearty, wholesome eating till you're very full with like people you are getting to know or people that you love. So it's I think it's an important distinction that he draws out there.
Yeah.
Mr. Beaver says that Tumnus was taken by the witch's secret police, including Mogrim.
Fenris Ulf for the
Fenris
Americans.
Mogrim.
We discovered that there's two names for the wolf and
Yeah.
potentially other characters in like the British versus American versions. We didn't know that.
Yeah,
Very weird.
so the original version, the wolf, the head of the witch's secret police, is named Mogrim, but then C.S. Lewis himself
changed it.
to Fenris Ulf for the American audience.
Why?
And then in later editions of the book, they changed it back to Mogrim because I don't know, it's kind of silly. I don't know why he did that, but I guess he wanted
He has a
to-
reason.
Yeah, I'm sure he has his reasons. He's like, the Americans would prefer Fenris Ulf for some reason. So Mr. Beaver surmises that Tumnus has probably been turned into a stone statue. And the children are horrified and they want to go rescue him. But Mr. Beaver basically tells them that that's not a good idea, because that's all part of the witch's plan.
Yeah.
There's this whole trap involved for them that Mr. Tumnus is there, and so she's hoping that they'll go and try and rescue Mr. Tumnus, because then she can capture all of the children. And he sort of outlines that there's this prophecy that we sort of discussed in the first episode, the 4 thrones in Cair Paravel that the children are supposed to occupy: 2 kings and 2 queens, sons and daughters of Adam, or sons of Adam and daughters of Eve. And so the witch wants to capture all of them, and it would be playing right into her hand if they went and tried to rescue Tumnus too hastily. So, Mr. Beaver tells them they can't do anything except go to Aslan. They want to hear more about Aslan, and they feel the same sensation they felt when first hearing his name. And Mr. Beaver tells them that he's the king of Narnia. He's the rightful king, as opposed to the witch who is masquerading as queen. Aslan is not in Narnia often, the Beaver
Just
says.
like God and Satan,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like he's the lord of this world, but the ultimate king is
Right.
God.
Yeah. And he's not always, like, clearly visible.
Right.
So the witch is pretending to be queen, and she calls herself a human, but she's not actually a human. One of them, Susan asks if Aslan's a man, and Mr. Beavers tells her that he's not a man, but he's a lion, the king of the beasts. And don't you know who is the king of beasts? Aslan is a lion, the great lion. And this is where the famous quote, let me just pull up the quote. Aslan is a lion, the great, Aslan is a lion, the great lion. Ooh, said Susan. I'd thought he was a man. Is he quite safe? I shall feel rather nervous about meeting a lion. Safe, said Mr. Beaver. Who said anything about safe? Course he isn't safe, but he's good. He's the king, I tell you. Which is, I think, one of the most famous quotes from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That's, I don't know. I see people post that quote all the time.
Yeah.
Because it's, again, this is sort of like, I think C.S. Lewis does a really good job of like sort of creating this allegory for God. Would you call it an allegory?
Like
I don't know.
Parallel. Yeah, I think he calls it an allegory.
Yeah, like a parallel for God. That, you know, we sort of have this idea in modern time that, you know, God is just you know, love and safety, and he's your best friend, and he's going to like take care of you, and that's all true.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
That's all true. But we sort of ignore this other side to God of like the fear of God.
Yeah, like the sublime. Like he's
Yes.
comforting and beautiful, but he's also like completely powerful and something to be feared.
Completely holy, and has no tolerance for evil.
Yeah, unrighteousness.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I think he does a good job of like sort of outlining this, that it's like he's like a lion, and that imagery is used a lot in the Bible as well. That he's not safe, but he's good. And so if you're good, if you're on the side of goodness and you submit to him, then you have nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
But he's far from safe, and that's I don't know. I think a very powerful image that he draws. So they're talking about the queen, not the queen, the witch. They are planning to meet Aslan at the stone table to fulfill a prophecy that the 4 thrones at Cair Paravel will be occupied by sons of Adam and daughters of Eve, and it will end the bad times in Narnia. And that's what the witch wants to prevent. They find out that she's not actually a human, but she's half giant and half jinn. And an interesting detail is that she descended on one side from Lilith, who's an apocryphal character in a figure. I think like in originally like Judaism, they even have this idea of Adam's first wife Lilith, who is sort of more demonic than Eve. I don't think it's, you know, it's not
That's
canon.
not biblical
It's
canon.
not biblical canon in any way.
No.
It's kind of a strange idea.
But I think he's just trying to parallel her.
Yeah, it's sort of evocative. The figure of Lilith is sort of evocative of who the witch is supposed to be.
And that's so true, Peas. I don't know if it picked it up.
Her groan. And it's also, it's sort of trying to show like the side that she's on of like evil and of like the demonic. While they're all talking, they realize that Edmund has gone missing, and they're sort of worried about how much he may have heard if he's gone to go join the witch. If he's heard their whole plan. I think we'll see in the next chapter that he has heard their whole plan.
Oh, no. We should get a soundboard.
We should. Little buttons. I believe.
Wah, wah.
Yeah. Mr. Beaver mentions that he could kind of tell that he was treacherous. Says, I didn't like to mention it before, he being your brother and all. But the moment I set eyes on that brother of yours, I said to myself, treacherous.
The shade.
He had the look of one who's been with the witch and eaten her food. You can always tell them if you've lived long in Narnia. Something about their eyes. So yeah, you can always tell. It's a bit Calvinist.
Yeah, no. I
it's
don't
not.
think that's what he's saying.
No, I remember.
Jesus is not a Calvinist.
No, I know.
Like, so far from that.
I'm just kidding. I just remember hearing this thing a long time ago about like old school Calvinists that were like so obsessed with
You
God's...
can see the lost in their eyes.
Yeah, they were so obsessed with God's sovereignty over like who was the chosen and who wasn't, that these like Calvinist priests like hundreds of years ago would like stand in the church and like kick people out because they'd just be like, no, you're not saved.
No.
Get out of here.
No. Yeah. Interesting.
You're not the elect. Sorry, beat it, Buster. Yeah. Sorry, that was what that evoked in my head. Obviously, C.S. Lewis is not a Calvinist, but I thought that was funny.
Not that all Calvinists do that.
No,
but
I take care to specify like old school Calvinists when they were like really obsessed with the sovereignty of God. The other thing that they were convinced of is that there is no similar to like how Jews sort of view things. They were convinced that there was no need to evangelize, that it was actually like a bad thing to evangelize because they're like, oh,
everyone's either elected or not.
Yeah, you're calling into question God's sovereignty. If he
Right.
wants someone to believe, he'll make them believe, which goes against scripture because Jesus says to evangelize.
Yeah, that's our call.
But yeah, so there was like certain like extreme Calvinists like hundreds of years ago that, you know, not all Calvinists are like that. In fact, most of them are not. No one remembers so they don't remember how much Edmund has overheard, and that's really important because the less Edmund tells the witch, the better. But they decide that they can't afford to stay at the beaver's home because the witch is almost certainly on her way. Whether she's heard about the stone table or not, she's probably heading out for the beaver's home first to come take them away as well. So they set out on their journey to go to the stone table. And I think, again, in a later chapter, we see that they're taking alternate routes to the stone table because they know that the witch will be on a carriage, so she'll be able to get there faster than them. So they take alternate routes so that they won't run into the witch. But then we're on to... What is this? So that was chapter 8. So then we're on to chapter 9, which is chapter following Edmund. Yeah. I'm just going to close this now because I have these last two from memory. Because we just read these ones.
Yeah.
So then we have chapter 9, which involves Edmund. We see now Edmund's experience or perspective as he goes to see the witch. So he slips away and he's walking through the cold snow. It's snowing more and more. It's getting darker and darker. And he is basically feeling miserable, but he periodically gains the strength to keep going through essentially pride.
Yeah.
That whenever he feels like he can't go on anymore, he starts like fantasizing about Turkish delight and about being king or prince and then eventually king and ruling over Peter.
Yeah,
he's really pissed at Peter. And he's like telling himself, he's like justifying to himself what he's doing. Yeah. Because everyone else is like rightly saying that she's like evil and that she's, you know, turned Tumnus to stone and all of these people to stone. And he'll like obviously be wanting to harm his brother and his sisters and also him, but he's sort of lying to himself the whole way. It sort of talks about how like he's justifying to himself that all of the people saying these negative things about the witch are her enemies, and so obviously they'd have some negative things to say, and that she can't actually be all that bad. She was so nice to me, right? Which is obviously nonsense. And he even it says that he even knows that that's nonsense. That deep down he kind of knows that. What he's doing is bad, and that
the witch is bad,
and that the witch is bad. Yeah. He knows deep down that she's bad, but he's lying to himself. He might feel
he's like too far into it.
Yeah, and that's kind of like how sin works. Is that like you might like find justifications for the things that you're doing, but you know, like ultimately deep down, you have a sense of like what you're doing is wrong. A
moral intuition.
Yeah. And so as he's like continuing through the cold and the snow, it's miserable and it's getting so dark that he can barely see, but the moonlight comes out and then he can sort of see his way to this castle, which is the witch's house.
Yeah.
And as he's entering into the witch's house, I believe he's standing in the doorway when he sees a lion, and he's terrified of this lion. As he's approaching, he's sort of frozen in the doorway. When he realizes that the lion's not moving, it has snow piling up on its head, and he realizes that it must be stone. So he goes up to the lion, and I think he assumes that this lion must be Aslan, because he was questioning in prior chapters whether the witch could also turn Aslan to stone.
Because that's what she does with her adversaries.
Yes. And so, also, I guess a bit of Medusa imagery there.
OT.
He takes the opportunity to go up to this stone lion, and he jeers at it, and he's like saying like, "Oh, stupid old Aslan,"
and he draws a little face on it with marker to be like, "Ha, got him."
Draws a little like mustache on the lion.
And I remember we didn't talk about this, but in the movie when wait, spoilers. Am I allowed to spoil later chapters?
Sure, yeah.
It's been out for a little bit, y'all.
Yeah.
I remember in the movie that when everything is like broken and it's like summer/spring and everything is melted and the stone figures are turned back to life, the like lion walks by and it has like the little glasses that he drew.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I never noticed that. Oh, that's really funny. I'll have to maybe put a little clip of that in. That's really funny. I didn't know that. But it says that he gets like no real joy or comfort out of his sort of mockery of this lion. And he continues on his way. He sees various other stone figures of all kinds. He sees like a stone giant. And he eventually...
The Stonish Giant.
The Stonish Giant. He eventually comes to a stone statue of Mr. Tumnus.
Of Mr. Beast.
Of Mr.
Who would win? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Beast versus Mr. Tumnus. I think Mr. Tumnus would win.
Oh, he wouldn't.
No. Mr. Beast has
He'd lull him with his flute.
Too many resources.
Yeah.
And then he continues on and he sees a wolf, and he thinks the wolf is also a statue, so he sort of approaches fearlessly when the wolf yells at him and says to go no further if he values his life. And this wolf is Mogrim, or Fenris Ulf.
We can call him Mogrim.
Yeah, we'll call him Mogrim, the head of the witch's secret police. And he's asking what Edmund is doing there, and Edmund explains what he's doing there, saying that he is there to see the witch, and he has information on his brother and sisters who are there in Narnia. So the wolf tells him to stay right there and goes in to talk to the witch. And the witch comes back out with Mogrim, and she's really angry because she says, "Why did you come to see me alone? I told you not to come see me alone, but to bring your brother and your sisters." And he's like, "Oh, I brought them most of the way. They're here." And he informs on them, and we find out then that he has heard everything of their plan. So he tells her about Aslan and the stone table, and she's very upset at hearing the name of Aslan, but he's just reporting what he said, what he overheard. And so the witch says to prepare her sleigh with no jingle bells this time, so that they can get the jump on them, and that they're going to go after or go to the stone table. I believe she says also that they're going to go to the beaver's house. And then go to the stone table. And I think that's all we see from their perspective.
And then we go back to the other kid's perspective in the next chapter.
Yeah. So then in chapter 10, we see the other three, Peter, Susan, and Lucy. Susan. Peter, Susan, and Lucy. We see their perspective with Mr. and Mrs. Beaver, and they're preparing to leave. And Mr. Beaver is all in a big hurry to gather everything ready to go, and Mrs. Beaver wants to pack them lunch and everything, and they sort of scuffle over how much they should prepare. And eventually they're on their way, and they travel for quite a long time, and Lucy's having trouble keeping up. She's sort of falling asleep as she's walking, and they're sort of having fun at first, but it's quite the long journey, and they're eventually having trouble. But they eventually make it to a hiding spot that Mr. Beaver has, a little beaver nook, hidey hole. And it's basically just like a little tunnel that they can barely all fit inside of. But he says it's a secret hiding place that he has for when things go bad in Narnia, that they can all hide away in. So he says, they've been going for such a long time, they need to get some sleep. So they all crawl into the hidey hole and they fall asleep. And they wake up the next day to jingle bells. And so, being sort of suspicious, because the witch does travel around on a sleigh with jingle bells oftentimes, they're concerned. And Mr. Beaver goes out to sort of scout things out, because he knows that he can make his way around without being seen.
Right.
And he goes and he looks around for quite a while. And they're a little concerned, but when Mr. Beaver comes back, he's all excited, and he can barely contain his excitement. He says, "Somebody's here to see ya." And the children all come outside, and sure enough,
it's Father's Christmas.
It's Father's Christmas. Father Christmas is there to visit the children. Which is so in chapter 10 we're seeing that the witch's magic is already it's starting to lose power,
right?
Because Aslan has returned. The winter is ending. They're getting Christmas, and
right, because the whole thing is always winter but never Christmas.
Yeah,
never Christmas.
Always winter, never spring.
Yeah.
Always winter and never Christmas. So they're finally getting Christmas, and Santa Claus, Father Christmas, says that he wasn't able to get into the Narnia, but he was finally able to.
Yay.
Or something to that effect. And it specifically says, like, oh, the witch's magic wouldn't allow me to enter, but I can enter again. It's because Aslan has returned. And he says, like, long live the true king. But this leads me to a little theory I have.
Yes.
I think that C.S. Lewis has created a world, a framework that can explain how Santa Claus delivers presents to every house in the world, all 8 billion or whatever,
so
that he can deliver presents to every house in the world in one night. And that is using the wood between the worlds, the wood betwixt the worlds, which is discussed in the prequel to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the Magician's Nephew. There's this area that they get to using the Diggory's secret, or not Diggory, Uncle Andrew's secret rings, the green and yellow rings. They get to the wood betwixt the worlds, which is all these pools, and all of these pools lead to different worlds, and one of these pools leads to Narnia. But one of them leads to Earth as well. And as we know in Narnia,
time is very different than on Earth.
Time is very different. When Lucy's gone in Narnia for hours and hours, she comes back and it hasn't even been 10 seconds. And similarly, time does not pass in the wood betwixt worlds. And so I believe that this is a great framework for how Santa Claus can deliver all of those presents in one night, is he can just use these pools in the wood betwixt worlds to, appear where he needs to deliver gifts, deliver them, and then hop back in. And in doing so, it's amazing what he does, because he is delivering all of those gifts, but he's able to take advantage of this pausing of time in order to get it all done in one night. That's my theory, at least. He doesn't outline that. He doesn't outline that in so many words, but I think
C.S. Lewis Santa supporter, certainly.
The existence of this world where time doesn't pass, and the existence of Santa Claus in that world, I think all but proves it.
That's so true.
So yes, that's excellent. Father Christmas gives them all of their Christmas gifts. To Peter, he gives a sword and a shield. To Suzeman, he gives He gives a
Arrows.
bow and arrow.
Katniss reference.
Katniss reference. But he tells Susan to only use them if she absolutely has to. And then he gives to Lucy a
cordial.
Yeah, a cordial.
Of healing.
A healing
potion.
Made from...
Potion seller.
Potion seller. Made from the finest fire flowers.
Yeah.
It's made from fire flowers. I don't know if Mario reference. And
C.S. Lewis jumping betwixt worlds to like see everything that will exist.
Yes. In the wood betwixt worlds, he went to the Mushroom Kingdom.
Of course, wouldn't we all?
And also a dagger, and he again says to Lucy to only use it if she absolutely has to. And she says, "Whoa, I think I'm brave enough to fight." And I think Santa Claus says something to the effect of battle is ugly when women get involved. To try not to unless she absolutely has to.
Yeah, he doesn't want her to be hurt.
Yes, doesn't want. It's sort of like a code of chivalry that the men should protect the women, etc.
Yeah.
Anything else from there? Do we meet Aslan, or is that the end of the chapter with Santa Claus?
I think it ends there.
I think it ends with Santa Claus. Santa Claus pulls away on his sleigh, and he says, "Long live the true king." And then before they even know it, he's disappeared, probably into the wood betwixt worlds. That's my pet theory.
So the next video will be like the climax and resolution. I guess.
Yes, the next episode will be Aslan and the battle and all of that fun stuff. But one more little thing. We were talking about how it's a little strange that it's also called Christmas in Narnia.
Oh yeah.
But Aslan is Jesus
in this world.
In the world of
Narnia.
Like he is the true Son of God,
right?
Just in lion form. And so his name in that world is
not
Aslan.
Christ. It's Aslan.
Oh, but wait,
he's hopping betwixt worlds, Santa. Us like penning this crazy betwixt the lines lore.
But the Narnians know of Christmas.
Yeah.
And they call it Christmas.
Yeah.
But I guess in fairness, his name is Jesus and he is the Christ. That's a title. And so maybe in Narnia he's Aslan Christ? Headcanon?
Canon.
This is not canon. But he'd still be the Christ, right? That's his title. He's the son of
you know
the
what?
living God.
Also, in
he's
like
the Messiah.
The first book in like Charn and like in Narnia, they know of Earth. Like they know of Adam and Eve and they know the lore.
Right.
So maybe like Christmas would reach from Earth lore into Narnia.
That's an interesting idea too.
And that event, the Christological event, has not happened yet in Narnia, but it has happened on Earth in parallel timelines.
But Aslan would still be the Messiah to the Narnians, right?
Yes.
So the Christ just means Messiah, right? Basically, it's like a similar title,
right?
So maybe he's Aslan Christ.
You have to stop saying Aslan Christ.
Well, that's what he is.
Okay, vote below, viewers. Comment below.
And that's
a big claim.
That's the title. Well, that's the only way to explain. No, I guess you're right. I guess
it's Earth lore.
It's Earth lore that's traveled all the way to Narnia. Yeah. But they're excited about Christmas too. I don't know.
Yeah, because where did Father's Christmas come from? He wasn't allowed in Narnia, so he came from Earth.
Yeah.
He came from the North Pole.
Yeah. Well, he's actually Saint Nicholas.
Yeah.
And he punched Arius at the Council of Nicaea.
That's true.
Arius got punched by Santa Claus. Little known lore.
In that case, could Rudolph enter Narnia? Theoretically.
I don't see why not.
That'd be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Vote below.
Vote below. Okay, well... I think we'll leave it
on
there.
On that note.
So join us next time. We'll be talking about the climax of the book. We'll be talking about Aslan and the great battle and the sacrifice and everything. All of the excellent stuff to come. You're in for the most exciting part. So stay tuned.
So true.
Join us next time on Betwixt the Lines. Thanks for tuning in.
Love ya.
Love ya.